Hello everyone, my name is Andrew Reagan and this is a nice 10-minute-ish cool down for our post strength training sessions. I encourage you to have like a bolster or a pillow and if possible a wall to be able to post up on for one of the stretches as well. Let's first begin by coming into a supine twist, lying down on our backs. Taking the arms out to the side, scooching the hips over to the left, and allow the legs to fall over to the right. Now, if you find yourself kind of gunked up, you can take a bolster or a pillow in between to give some additional support, opening up through the chest. And as you arrive in the position, lengthen through the neck and allow your energy and your breath to soften. Noticing any tension you may be holding in your body as you begin to soften and melt into the earth. This is a great stretch to help decompress the spine and open up the lateral hips. Opening up through the rib cage and out through the chest and the bicep. Allowing your breath to slow down and allowing each exhale to begin to lengthen, allowing energy out of the system. And in this flow, we will hold each posture for roughly a minute. So after 1 minute, switch sides. All right, returning to center, scooting your hips over towards the opposite side, adjusting yourself as necessary. I'm gonna keep this pillow in between the knees just because it feels really nice. And you may notice as you switch sides that you may feel more gunked up on one side versus another. That's completely normal and that's okay. Now, if you pull your knees closer in towards your chest, you'll be getting more of a rotation through the rib cage and the thoracic spine versus pulling your knees further away from you. That is going to help open up the low back a little bit more. Finding the position that feels best for you. And as you arrive, soften. Allowing your body to feel heavy as you sink into the earth. And after a minute, return to center, coming into a fetal position, making your way on up, and using your pillow to help you adjust into our half pigeon. So taking your shin out in front of you, and the pillow underneath that right hip, scooch the trailing hip back, and open up through the trailing hip flexor and the outer right hip. Now, if this feels like too much, you can return to lying down on your back and coming to a figure 4 variation where you take the ankle to the opposite knee and pull the knee into the chest. This is a great variation as well. Coming back to that half pigeon, you can see which angle feels best to have that front shin. Maybe you need to have the heel closer towards your groin, if that makes it easier on that front knee. And eventually making your way down and finding a position that feels best for you. And when you're done, walk your hands back, come into a downward facing dog to transition. And if you're in that figure 4, you can just stay on your back and then switch sides. Maybe it feels good to walk it out, shake your hips out side to side, and then take that front shin out in front of you, or that left shin, whatever shin you're doing second, and come into the second side. Eventually making your way into a position that feels like you're getting some nice opening through the outside of the hip. And as much as we want to prioritize working out, in our body and letting energy out of our system, it's also important to nourish and have restorative practices and to work in. So when we're doing some of these deep stretches, it's not about straining or trying, it's more about allowing and finding that Goldilocks position of not too hot, right? Where it's hot and it's stiff and it feels like too much and it hurts, versus, not enough and we're not feeling any benefits. We want to find that medium space of what feels good, but also what feels like we're getting a good stretch as well here. And allow your breath to soften. Allow yourself to sink into the earth. Coming back up after a minute. Maybe it feels good to hang out there for 10 minutes. But just for the sake of this video, we're just doing a minute each time. Okay, next exercise, legs up the wall. Take your hips towards the wall so that they're adjacent, right up against the wall. And turn over onto your back. Have your butt up against the wall. And take the feet out wide. Awesome way to open up through the inner hamstrings, the groin, the adductors. We want our sacrum and our tailbone on the earth here, so we don't want our butt off the ground. And I have maybe like a ½ inch or an inch of space between my butt and the wall. So we're getting our hips in this nice flexed and open position here. And we'll hold this one for a little bit longer than a minute. This one feels incredibly rejuvenating, so we'll hold this one for closer to 2. And you may notice that as you spend a little bit more time in this posture, maybe your feet can come out wider, getting into the deep inner hamstrings. And while we're in this position, it's a great opportunity to invite a breath practice into your body. So, taking a deep inhale through the nose. Open mouth exhale, extending your exhale for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and rest at the bottom. Going twice more. Inhaling through the nose for 3, 2, 1. Holding at the top. Lengthening the exhale through the mouth. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Through the nose, inhale for 3, 2, 1, and hold. Through the mouth, exhale 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Returning to your normal breath pattern. In and out through the nose. Taking 2 more breaths before we come out of this posture. Bringing the feet back towards the midline, returning back onto the mat, and coming into our last shape of the lizard lunge, or if you are a yin yoga practitioner, this is also known as dragon lunge. And I like to have a pillow underneath my trailing knee for this one. As we bring 1 foot forward, lengthening through the trailing hip flexor and getting some nice opening through the quad and the hip flexor. Now you may find it feels better for you to have your hands on the knees. We don't want to feel any crunchiness in the low back as we open up and lengthen through that trailing leg. These muscles get worked big time if you're squatting or if you're sitting at a desk. These muscles get passively stiffened, and we use these a lot if we're hiking up a mountain too. So we want to spend some time opening up through the trailing hip flexors, and simultaneously, if you come down onto the hands or the forearms, you can get into the deep hamstrings as well. And as you come down deeper in the pose, sometimes it feels good to walk the foot out to the side, coming onto the pinky edge and opening up through that hamstring a little bit deeper. With the neck relaxed, let the jaw and head hang. And after a minute, walking it back up, switching sides. Taking the pad over towards the opposite knee, walking the opposite forward, and starting in the variation of the pose that feels best for you. And all the while lengthening the exhale, cooling down and letting energy out of the system. Walking your hands back up. Coming to a seat. Extending your arms overhead, taking a deep inhale. Whew. And let it go. I hope your body feels nice and cooled down. Thanks for joining me.